Do you face problems with Vite integration in WordPress? Hammer doesn't work? I was there too. I messed up a little bit by skipping the read the documentation part while upgrading Vite, but who reads the documentation first? Anyway, if you want to avoid my mistakes or you are searching for solutions to your problems with Vite in WordPress, you must see this material. I will upgrade Vite to the latest version, fix what went wrong and discuss what changes it brings to our WordPress integration. Finally, the icing on the cake, I will show you something you must know if you want to use front-end assets in the backend code. Of course, in the way that will help you get to know Vite better and maybe become a better developer. So, welcome back, I'm Przemek and this is my journey to mastering Vite with WordPress, the second part. Let's begin. If you didn't have a chance to check out the first one, I insist you to check out it first, because you will need some knowledge provided there to understand this one correctly. So check it out and get back to this material. In my previous video I presented how to integrate Vite with WordPress, however, thanks to the Jantag observation, there was one important missing element: the need to load scripts as modules no matter if the development mode is active or not. I have just forgot about this. It wasn't a problem in case of having just one script to enqueue in WordPress without external libraries, but it had to be fixed. So I moved the function which adds type module tag from the Vite integration class to assets module to ensure the loading of all the theme assets as a modules. While it's crucial to mention the browser support again, it is not an issue for me because I accept the browser which support this as the default choice. These changes have been now reflected in the original article, so if you follow them you should make it work without any problems. Just remember that in Vite integration, all the scripts should be loaded as the modules. Vite 5 has been just released and I want to send a big thanks to the teams for their huge effort. You are amazing, guys. This update brings some performance improvements caused by adopting Rollup 4, increases the minimum node version to Node 18, focuses on cleaning up some deprecated APIs and includes several smaller enhancements. If you are interested in all the changes, you can check out the detailed release notes. In this discussion, I will focus mainly on the aspects crucial to the WordPress workflow that we defined in the previous material, especially the ones that have broken my integration. I will start with something small. CJS API has been marked as deprecated and it will be removed in the future releases. It means that we should not use require Vite anymore. That's not a problem for us because we already use the dynamic imports with the import declaration, but in the current setup, when executing the dev or build command, Vite displays a deprecation notice. It can be resolved by adding the type module key to the package.json file. Another important change involves the relocation of the manifest.json file, crucial for handling assets loading in our system after the build. In Vite 4.5, when the manifest was enabled and set to true in the Vite config, it was placed in the output directory, so it was dist/manifest.json in our setup. After the upgrade, it is also wrapped in the .vite directory. So WordPress is not able to load this file anymore, resulting in displaying build the code notice all the time. To solve this, we should update the path to manifest in the WordPress configuration or force Vite to put this file in the place as earlier, directly to the output directory by specifying the file path, the manifest file path, in the build.manifest key of the vite.config.js. We can set it to manifest.json. It's simple. I have chosen configuring Vite because I don't want to keep the public references to the development infrastructure details in the production. Let's call it a security risk. The next thing is handling Vite client. As you remember, to make up the integration, we had to load Vite client in WordPress when the development server was active to make up the Hammer features work. I couldn't find any references to this in the release notes, but after updating Vite, the client was not available within the previous URL anymore. It started taking the base path that we've set into the account, so it became available within the new URL. We need to reflect this change in the WordPress config and and everything starts to work fine. I'm not sure if I have missed something while creating the previous implementation, but for me it was available directly at localhost. Can you let me know in the comments how it worked in your cases? I couldn't find any references to this issue too, but after the upgrade I noticed that I no longer encounter errors when terminating the development process with Command C shortcut. This issue might be also related to the yarn itself that I use, although I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm glad that it functions fine now. And now it's time for the icing on the cake. One of my readers asked a question about handling static assets in the backend code, and I want to send a big thanks to Michał, because that's a really great question indeed, and this question needs an answer. Vite is primarily designed for creating reactive front-end applications. However, when integrated with backend tools like WordPress, it might need a little bit of help in understanding our development processes, especially if they deviate from the standard practices. One of such cases is handling public assets in the backend code. Let's try to illustrate this problem by implementing a simple requirement, which is displaying a logo located in the resources/image directory in the header. So, how to use those assets in the backend code? We already defined a workflow for loading CSS or JavaScript in the previous material, involving the assets/resolver trait to obtain the correct URL for the assets we need. We will use the same workflow in the backend code, but we only need to perform a small tweak. The resolve function used to handle this is hidden under the resolver class, so we need to open it for the public usage by changing the function accessor to public. Thanks to this, we can resolve assets across the whole codebase. As you probably remember, when the development mode is active, assets are available within the Vite dev server. If we access this resource in our backend code, everything works great. Of course, if the development server was active. When we build our application for production using Vite, sometimes images or files like the logo might not show as expected anymore. In Vite, images, fonts, and SVG files references in the CSS or JavaScript code are automatically resolved, added to the manifest.json file and moved to the dist directory with the build, allowing effective usage in the production mode. If assets are referenced differently, for example in our backend code, they might not get included in the final build. As a result, when we view the application in production mode, those assets may appear missing. It is a problem because sometimes we need to use such assets in the backend code. Of course, we can hack this workflow and add a reference to the image to the CSS file, for example to a class that won't be used, but it just doesn't make sense. Vite should help us not create problems. That's why we need to help Vite learn how to assist us. Our goal? We want to use the assets in the backend code no matter if they have been referenced in the CSS or JavaScript file or not. How to achieve this? We can manually move required files to the dist directory after each build and add entries into the manifest.json file. That's how we will be able to use them effectively in the backend. Task done, right? Of course, I'm kidding, it doesn't make any sense. Relying on manual work defeats the very first purpose of Vite efficiency. So, what's the solution? We can ask Vite to do this for us. Vite allows extending its default behavior with plugins. We could use rollup plugin copy to copy assets from one directory to another during the build process. So for example, we can define that the PNG SVG files located in the resources directory should be copied to the dist directory after the build. However, this plugin doesn't fully meet our needs. We still have to manually list those assets in the manifest.json file to not break our WordPress flow. Unfortunately, this plugin doesn't provide this. I searched for a solution, but it was hard to find them, and I'm not really surprised. In the default way of using Vite, for example for front-end applications, it is not needed because the public directory is the one that can be used for assets that are not referenced in the code. In our backend workflow, it probably won't work easily, so I've decided to learn something new and create my own plugin to do exactly what I need. And surprisingly, it was really easy. So let's check out how we can achieve this. We need to create a flow to copy specific assets to the this directory during the build process and add entries to manifest.json to use them effectively in the backend code. Before we proceed, please note that at this moment our focus is mainly on making our dev flow functional, with potential upgrades and adjustments in the future. That's why we skip some of the official plugins conventions as it was recommended. So once we solve our problems, we might think about adjusting it to the general usage. How to create a Vite plugin? Maybe you don't recall, but we already created a simple Vite plugin that refreshes the browser window upon the changes in the backend file. It was done in the previous material. Due to its simplicity, it was defined in line within the vite.config.js. And while this method is fine for such simple scenarios, in our case I prefer more organized approach to avoid monolithic file and uphold the single responsibility principle. Oh, you've just had the New Year's Eve petard trying, and I don't get the idea of this. If you can, don't use them because the animals are scared. I don't like this. Small off topic, but important. Let's create a copy.js file within the .vite directory with a factory function that returns the actual plugin object. Then import it in the vite.config.js and configure in the plugin key. Why .vite directory? I just want to store the Vite development scripts like plugins there. That's just my choice. Then we must find a way to extend Vite's behavior with our plugin actions. Hooks will be perfect for this. The concept of hooks should be familiar to you, especially if you work with WordPress. If not, please check out this material because it might help. Hooks in simple words allow firing some actions at specific execution points, for example, when the config has been resolved. In our case, we will use the config hook for initializing the plugin behavior, build start to verify the target paths and prepare files to copy, write bundle for copying them, and the close bundle for adding the references to copied files to manifest.json. If you want to build your own plugin that works with different actions, please check out the official docs. They include really valuable resources like diagrams illustrating the firing sequence that might help you a lot. The next question is how to decide about the plugin's behavior, meaning how to configure it. While we could hardcode everything, the paths, manifest, the files placement, etc., I believe that we should put at least a minimal effort into making it more dynamic by taking the user config into the account. How? The plugin initialized in the plugins key of the vite.config.js can accept the arguments that will be passed to the plugin factory function. So we can use it for customizing behavior. In our case, the config accepts an array of targets to copy in the targets key. Each target should have a SRC property set to paths or glob pattern. So, for example, in this case, we want to take all the PNG, JPG, SVG files located within the resources/images, copy them to the output directory and add entries to the manifest.json. Which coding approach should we use for creating a plugin? While a standard procedural approach would be fine enough, I prefer using object-oriented approach. It just looks nicer to me and allows separating my business needs from the Vite infrastructure itself. What does it mean? What are the benefits? You can ask. If we look at the final results later, we will see that we created a simple Node script that takes the user configuration, analyzes the data and performs operation on the files. Vite or rollup won't be referenced there even once. So why to create a code that is highly coupled into the infrastructure details if it's not needed, especially if it's still simple? We can create a solution that is decoupled from the infrastructure, allowing us to use it no matter what tool we will use for bundling. Rollup, VIP, Webpack, Gulp, we just create a class instance there, configure and fire specific functions in specific for the infrastructure time. As you can see, it is just a simple class. It provides a few functions that we already discussed earlier. We create an instance in the plugin factory and just run specific functions at specific execution points, so in the Vite or rollup hooks. It's pretty simple. Now, how to implement the plugin behavior? First, let's implement the init function used for setting the default plugin behavior. This function is fired in the config hook, which provides the user config So it is CLI options merged with the config. It provides this data as a parameter, so we can use it. Rather than passing the entire Vite config object to the init function, I prefer limiting access to the data to reduce complexity. Managing messy checks related to the user input outside this class prevents an overflow of information. Speaking of simple words, the class doesn't need to know everything. Also, if we would pass the entire Vite config there, we would break the idea of using the class that we discussed earlier. We analyze the config, get the specific user options, set the default values when the required ones are not really set, and pass this as a parameter to the init function. Then in this function, we get this config from the parameter and define the plugin behavior. We set the output directory and manifest paths, file name patterns, iterates through the targets, filters them by checking if the SRC is set, and builds an array for further usage. The function just takes the user config that looks like here and builds something like this. Since the plugin config is set, I can create a resolve function that will analyze the defined patterns for the files that should be copied. It iterates through the specified targets, search for the files, and prepares their production names and placement. For analyzing the glob patterns, I use the glob library installed with the yarn@glob command with the dev parameter. Unique hashes for the file names can be generated within the crypto module available in the node. So in this step, we just take the targets array prepared earlier and fill the files property based on the files located in those directories. Now we can implement a copy function that will copy the files to the correct destination. I've wrapped the file reading-writing process handled by Node's FS file system module into the try and catch structure, considering potential file operation issues. Once the file has been copied correctly, the function adds a manifest entry to the array for further usage. As you can see, it's just a simple array that includes objects with source and file information. If you look at the standard manifest.json, you will see that it looks the same. Finally, in the write function, we take the manifest entries to add from the class property and write them to the file using the FS module. Of course, we do this only for the entries that doesn't exist there, to avoid duplications. So now we can run yarn build command in the terminal to see that the plugin correctly copies the files and add entries to manifest.json. So we are just ready to use our assets across the whole codebase. So for example, now, if we will take the assets that was not referenced in the CSS or JavaScript file, even in the production mode, it will be valuable because it has an entry in the manifest.json and the files is located in the dist directory correctly. So we have been able to manage this situation just by creating a new plugin that does exactly what we need. We have a huge room for improvements in this plugin. We can add some kind of logging to see which files have been copied. We can arrange and adjust the code to the Vite or rollup plugin conventions. In general, we can do much more than this. But in this material, I wanted to show you the base, the idea, the possibility to make our dev flow functional, to adjust the development workflow to our needs, because this is the most important case. And I believe that you also see that it was really simple. So in the next problem that you will have, you will just take this knowledge and build and help Vite understand your own specific needs for the development process. I talked too much about solving my problems, but I think that in the development process, especially if we use external libraries, we are in the center, not the external library, not the other person. We can be selfish in this area. So that's all. Please remember that, as always, all the changes that we've made are available within the public GitHub repository, so feel free to check it out to understand this topic better, or just to copy and paste the code. And of course, let me know what do you think about this topic in the form presented in my blog. I will be really grateful for this. Once we finish the main part, it's time for some announcements. And at first, I want to send a big thanks for all you guys who joined the conversation in the previous material. It was really great experience to me to see such kind of engagement, and I want to thank you for all questions, all thoughts and great feedback. I must admit that this material, this one that I create now, wouldn't have been created so quickly without your feedback and questions, so thank you for all of them. The next thing is that I plan to provide you more and more content in the next year. This one was some kind of test if I enjoyed this, and it occurs that I like it a lot, so I plan to do more and more. I already had really great ideas for the content, so I believe that you will like it too. If you want to see the results, please remember to subscribe to my channel. It will help me to decide what's to do next. If you enjoyed this, please thumbs up in this video. It will help me decide if I'm going in the right direction, as always. Please let me know in the comments what do you think. If you have any other problems with Vite and WordPress, also just let me know. I will try to help you and make some research just to make your make our integration better. So thank you for your time today, and see you next time. Bye bye.